Number 15. Robert Overacker falling to his death. California stunt school graduate Robert Overacker died on October 1st, 1995 in an attempt to jump from Niagara Falls at age 39. Overacker had planned the stunt for 7 years and practiced it many times, although family and friends discouraged doing so. Witnesses saw Robert Overacker ride over the brink of the Canadian Horseshoe Falls around 12:35 p.m. The stunt was to ride his jet ski over the brink, then activate a parachute to help him float to the water below. However, his parachute malfunctioned and he plummeted to his death. Police stated that falling into water from such a height would be like hitting concrete. Roughly 3,000 people witnessed the accident, and this famous photo was taken by an Egyptian tourist. Robert Overacker was attempting the stunt to raise awareness for homelessness. According to the Niagara Falls Parks Commission, Overacker was the 5th person to die from a plunge over the tourist attraction. Number 14. Paul Walker entering the car he would later die in. Paul Walker was a famous American actor known for his role in the Fast and Furious franchise. He died in a fatal car crash on November 30th, 2013 at age 40. Paul Walker was heading with friend Roger Rodas to a charity event when Rodas lost control of the vehicle and they both died upon impact from traumatic injuries. The photo of Paul Walker entering Rodas's red 2005 Porsche that he would later die in circulated quickly across the internet not long after the news of the crash was released. The photo was taken by a fan and is claimed to be the last photo taken of Paul Walker. The widowed wife of Roger Rodas later filed a lawsuit against the Porsche company, claiming that her husband was a skilled driver. Porsche stated that Roger Rodas's death and all other injuries or damages claimed were the result of Roger Rodas's own driving. Regardless of the fault of the crash, 2 lives were lost, and seeing a photograph of Paul Walker entering the car he would die in creates an eerie and somber feeling. Number 13. James Bulger CCTV image. In February 1993, 2 10-year-old boys, John Venables and Robert Thompson, murdered 2-year-old James Bulger after kidnapping him from the Strand Shopping Centre in Liverpool. The 2 older boys led the toddler away from his family and took him to a railway embankment a couple of miles from the shopping centre. The 2 boys were stopped many times by worried passerbyers and asked if they needed help getting home. The 2 boys declined, and everyone went along their way despite James Bulger's constant crying. A security camera image released by authority showing the young boy being led away by his murderers sent a shock throughout media, as it forced parents everywhere to question what their kids were capable of. 2 days after his death, 2-year-old James was found tied to a railroad and covered in unspeakable injuries. Investigators say Venables and Thompson tortured and sexually assaulted James before he died from a severe head injury. The 2 child murderers were held in a young offenders institution until the age of 18, when they were released and given new identities. Number 12. Ki-Suk subway death. In Queens, New York, at a train station, a shocking photo was caught of a man looking directly at a massive train that was only seconds away from crushing him. Ki-Suk was involved in a confrontation with a panhandler at the station, which led him to being pushed on the railways. Many people at the train station began shouting and waving, trying to stop the train. Witnesses say that Ki-Suk was very confused and probably already injured, which is why it took him several moments to begin his attempt of climbing out. The freelance photographer Umar Abbasi that snapped the infamous shot had previously been flashing his camera to try and alert the train driver. As the photographer ran forward to help Ki-Suk, it was too late and the train crushed him like a rag doll, Abbasi said. The panhandler Naeem Davis that pushed Ki-Suk onto the railways was later charged with murder for his actions. Number 11. Coach William Dave Sanders warning students just before the Columbine Massacre. One of the most well-known school shootings is the Columbine Massacre, which occurred in Columbine, Colorado on April 20th, 1999. Aside from the mass shootings, there were also fire bombs planted throughout the school by shooters Eric Harris and Dylan Kelbold. In the months following the massacre, news stations nationwide released numerous clips of security camera footage, as well as photos taken by cameras. Out of all of the photos released, one of the most famous is of Coach William Dave Sanders in the high school cafeteria, warning students of the two shooters. After pulling an alarm, Coach Dave Sanders and two janitors helped move about 100 students to safety. The security camera photo was taken at 11:24 a.m., showing Sanders running up the stairs to help more students. Moments after this photo, he was shot from behind by Eric Harris in the head, torso, and back. Sanders managed to get into a science lab where he and the students waited for 911 dispatchers to send help. Unfortunately, the help never arrived, and Coach Sanders bled to death. Number 10. Nepali Man Suicide. This disturbing photo may seem humorous at first glance until you realize the unidentified Nepali man did not slip and fall. Instead, he jumped from a 3-story shophouse and died a mere split second after this photo was taken on September 11, 2013. Emergency responders, as well as fire and rescue members, attempted to talk the man out of jumping for 3 hours. Their efforts failed and he jumped to an instant death. The man had told responders that he had recently lost his job and saw no point in going on. Number 9. Hot air balloon in New Zealand strikes a power line. During a scenic hot air balloon flight on January 7, 2012 in Carterton, New Zealand, the balloon crashed into a power line, which caused it to catch fire and crash north of the town. All 10 passengers and the pilot died. An investigation conducted by the Transport Accident Investigation Commission exposed that the pilot had made an error of judgment while trying to miss the power line. Once the pilot realized he was too late, he attempted to go above the power line rather than use the rapid descent system, which would have dropped the balloon to the ground. A toxicology report also found that the pilot tested positive for THC and may have been high on weed. The crash was the deadliest air disaster to occur in mainland New Zealand since 1963. Number 8. George Mallory and Sandy Irvine at their Mount Everest Base Camp before their disappearance. The 1924 British Mount Everest expedition was the second expedition with the goal of achieving the first ascent of Mount Everest. Climbers George Mallory and Sandy Irvine went missing during their third attempt of this expedition on June 8, 1924. The photo of the two at their base camp preparing to head out on their voyage is the last time they were seen alive. In fact, they went missing only hours after this photo was taken and would spark a truly baffling mystery. Mallory chose Irvine to be his climbing partner, not due to his climbing skills, but rather to his knowledge of oxygen equipment used by the team in the climb. Fellow climber Noel Odell claims seeing the two climbers 1,000 feet below him before monsoon clouds moved in and they vanished. No sign of the climbers was found until 1933 when an ice axe was found, which later proved to belong to Irvine. In 1975, a Chinese climber named Wang Hongbo discovered the body of a man at around 8,100 meters. This body was originally thought to be Irvine's, but forensics found it to be the body of Mallory. Although many climbers have claimed to see the body of Irvine, no substantial evidence has been provided, and many climbers still investigate this today. Number 7. Omagh Car Bombing. On August 15th, 1998, a car bombing took place in Omagh, Northern Ireland. It was carried out by the real IRA and caused the deaths of 29 people while severely injuring over 200 more. The Omagh Car Bombing had the highest death toll of any incident during the Troubles, a conflict in Northern Ireland that lasted over 30 years. This photo of a young child on a man's shoulders has become quite infamous because it demonstrates how unexpected the attack was. Perhaps the most tragic part of the picture is the unsuspecting civilians walking the busy streets behind the photo moments before a true massacre. The photo was found in a camera beneath piles of debris and rubble that was somehow saved in the bombing. Their smiles will be forever frozen in time. Number 6. Carl Williams before being beaten to death by fellow inmate. Carl Anthony Williams was an Australian convicted murderer and drug trafficker. He was involved in the Melbourne gangland killings. He was sentenced to life imprisonment for ordering the murders of 3 people. On April 19, 2010, while incarcerated at Barwon Prison, Williams was beaten to death with the stem of an exercise bike by Matthew Charles Johnson, who was also incarcerated at Barwon Prison. The terrifying photo is from the Commons area just outside of Carl Williams' prison cell. The person seen sitting at the table reading is Williams, and the threatening figure behind him is his murderer Matthew Johnson. Williams died from traumatic head injuries, and 3 investigations were conducted. Matthew Johnson claims that he murdered Williams because another inmate had told him Williams planned to kill him the next day with billiard balls in a courtyard fight. Number 5. Marius Sanchez trapped under the Nevado del Ruiz volcanic eruption. In early November of 1985, in a small village called Omayra, a 13-year-old girl named Marius Sanchez was trapped under the debris of her home after the Nevado del Ruiz volcano erupted. The eruption killed about 25,000 people and destroyed Omayra along with 13 other villages. Water and volcanic debris rushed beneath her home, and Omayra became trapped in the water. She remained there for 3 entire days as news stations and photographers documented her descent into agony and eventually death. She dealt with things positively at first by singing songs to keep calm and talking to those attempting to save her. But as time went on, the pain became too much and she began hallucinating, saying that she did not want to be late for school. The most famous photo released of Omayra is the one taken by photojournalist Frank Fournier briefly before her death. The blood vessels in her eyes were popped, likely from the air pressure change when the eruption occurred. Along with this, her hands turned white and her face swelled. Towards the end of her life, she told members to leave her so that she may rest, and when they returned, they were unable to get her out and found it more humane to let her die there, asleep. Her cause of death was likely hypothermia or gangrene. The photo taken of Omayra's life ending became a public symbol for the inability of officials to save victims. Number 4. JFK before being assassinated. John F. Kennedy was the 35th President of the United States from 1961 until his assassination in November 1963. Kennedy was assassinated in his car while on a political trip in Dallas, Texas. The president was shot a total of 3 times, once in the head, throat, and upper back. This assassination became one of the most commonly theorized murders of all time. Despite there being numerous haunting photos of the day, the photo of President John F. Kennedy flashing a huge smile just moments before he is fatally shot seems to be the most unsettling. Number 3. The Bachelorette Girls. In mid-June 2014, 2 young best friends were heading to a bachelorette party when the passenger and bride-to-be, Colette Marino, took a quick photo of her and the driver, Ashley Theobald. Judging from the smiling faces and sunshine featured in the photo, you'd never guess that the photo would be the last ever taken of the young bride. Theobald said the crash was caused by her trying to pass a semi-truck because its exhaust fumes were causing Marino to have an asthma attack. As she attempted to pass the truck, she was involved in a head-on collision with an oncoming Dodge on the other side of the road. All victims involved in the crash were wearing their safety belts, but only Colette Marino faced the fatal consequences of the crash. The truly chilling part of this is that before the crash, she had posted the photo on Facebook, stating that she was so happy to start her bachelorette weekend. Strange and heartbreaking to think that friends and family had no idea they were liking a photo of an already dead young bride. Number 2. United Airlines Flight 175. One of the most tragic terrorist attacks known to the United States is the attack of September 11, 2001 on the World Trade Center Twin Towers in New York City. United Airlines Flight 175 was a passenger flight en route to Los Angeles, California from Boston, Massachusetts, when it was taken over by 5 plane hijackers involved in the terrorist attacks of 9/11. This popular photo was taken a few seconds before Flight 175 struck the South Tower of the World Trade Center around 9:03 a.m. This flight was the second of 2 planes that was crashed into the Twin Towers. There were 60 people on this plane aside from the 5 hijackers, and there were no survivors. Number 1. The Ukrainian airshow disaster. One of the deadliest airshow accidents in history, known as the Ukrainian airshow disaster, occurred on Saturday, July 27, 2002, when a Ukrainian Air Force fighter crashed during an airshow presentation at Sknyliv airfield. 77 people were killed and 543 injured, yet the 2 pilots miraculously survived with very minor injuries. Over 10,000 spectators witnessed the devastating crash, and this photo was taken by a spectator a few feet away. You have to consider how fast a plane crash occurs. When you look at this photo, you can see the plane coming downwards upon the crowd. The pilots were doing a rolling maneuver with a downward trajectory at low altitude when the left wing dropped shortly before the aircraft hit the ground, at which point the crew ejected, which can be seen in the photo. In a court case that followed the crash, the pilots claimed that they'd been given a different map layout than what was actually accurate. However, many people believe that they were just too slow to react to warnings given by the flight computer. Got an idea for a top 15 list? Be sure to leave it in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe for future videos. Thanks for watching.